Welcome to episode 7 of the Posted Up podcast. I have a very special guest today, Miss Kaylie. Is it Klitzing?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, wanted to make sure I said that right. Miss Kaylie Klitzing. You all know her as Keeks Treats from my most recent video. I tried a couple of the blondies and cookies that she sent me, and I was hooked. They're crack, I'm telling you. So we're going to talk a little bit today about her journey to Ifbb Pro status, competitive powerlifting, how she got into making such delicious treats, and in the midst of all of that, potentially moving to the other side of the country while still managing and running multiple businesses. So without further ado, Kaylie, welcome.
Thank you.
If you could, just tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of where you're from, where you're at, age, whatever you want to kind of roll through.
Yeah. So I am actually from California. I lived there my whole life up until I moved out to Portland, Oregon. 5 years ago. And that was the first time I was actually still living with my parents. And I was like, surprise, mom and dad, I'm going to leave and move to another state with a brand new guy. But it was definitely like the best decision I've ever made. It just opened my eyes to the world, literally. So we've been out here. I am an Ifbb Figure pro, and then I got into powerlifting when I moved out here. My husband and I opened up a gym in Portland, and then we have an online coaching business. We recently started our own supplement line, and then coming up on a year, I started my own baking business. So just kind of doing a lot between businesses and being competitive athletes, but it's been a blast.
It's awesome. I can't wait to dig into all of that. So real quick, for those of you that are watching this on YouTube, I'm going to pull up her personal page here. I wanted to roll through some of these so we could talk about it. Hopefully you can see my screen here. So let's go down to maybe. All right. There's a couple that I picked out earlier that I wanted you to touch on. The first one is this one right here. I think this was from your second pro show.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about your journey to becoming a pro. How many shows? How long have you been in it? What got you started?
So all throughout, I think when I started, how old was I? I think I was 8. I had started cheerleading, and then I cheered all the way through high school. But after high school, my parents didn't want to pay for it anymore, and it's very expensive. So I was like, okay, I got to go to the gym or something. And so I started going to the gym, and I saw a girl that looked absolutely amazing. And turns out she was a figure competitor. And so that was what kind of introduced me to it. And I was like, hey, I want to try. Do you think you can coach me? And so she coached me, not all the way through to my first show. I ended up having to go separate ways, but I met plenty of coaches along the way. I did what? I did my first show at the very end of 2015, and I got my pro card mid 2017.
Wow.
So I did 3 figure shows, and I tried to do women's physique, but I'm really small, so that didn't really work out. And then I ended up taking a couple years off from it, and then I started doing my pro shows after that. So go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask, which show did you turn pro at?
USA's.
Okay, and that's Vegas, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So turned pro a couple years later in Vegas, and then took a few years off, came back to it, or was powerlifting kind of born in between that?
I did start powerlifting mainly to help me, because obviously, I mean, I guess I shouldn't say obviously, it's obvious to me. Um, definitely had some like body image issues.
Mhm.
And I was solely focused on the fact that I wasn't shredded. And obviously, it's not healthy for women to stay that lean. So I tried powerlifting, and turns out I am actually kind of good at it. So within a couple of meets, I was top 10 in the world in my weight class.
Wow.
So I dabbled in that, and I just kind of, that helped me take my focus off of not being lean,
Mhm.
and just focusing on feeling good and performing good. Um, and then I did end up getting back into bodybuilding. A couple years later, I decided that I feel like I was in a good place. I was really strong and put on some good size. So I was going to try to get ready for the pro stage.
Nice. And I think that's a really good point that you brought up, is the body image issues. And me being a competitor, it was definitely something that I went through as well. And I think it's something that a lot of people don't understand when it comes to this sport. You get so wrapped up in having to become lean, and you get so used to seeing yourself that lean that you forget that you're only doing that for a small portion of time. And once the show's over, I mean, I remember my first show was terrible. I think I rebounded like probably 30 pounds in 3 days. I just went off the rails. There
Oh,
was,
in 3 days.
yeah. So there was, I mean, the night of the show, my very first show, I did novice. And I remember being put dead center. And my coach came up to me after prejudging, and he said, "You look great up there. Posing could have, there are a couple things you could have tweaked, but you're either first or second with the way that they had you. You never moved." And I'm like, "All right, cool." So we're talking, and he's like, "Yeah, so for novice, for night show, everything's already, you know, the judges basically have everything planned out. At this point, you're just going out and you get a little bit extra time on stage." And I'm like, "Wait a second. So it doesn't matter how I look at the night show?" And he's like, "Not for novice. No, they don't judge
Huh.
beyond prejudging."
I didn't know that.
Right? So I'm backstage, and I'm like, "Oh, it's time to, it's time to carb up." So I'm back there. It's like a cupcake, and somebody had, uh, you know, Rice Krispie treats. I'm like, "Yeah, let me get one of those." And I'm back there with Pop Tarts, and it was just all bad. And there was no plan of what to do post show. And I think that's something where I see a lot of competitors fall off too, is their
Hmm.
coach that they're working with does everything to get them to that point, and then it's all right, good to go, see you later. So for
Yeah.
me, it was, I ate everything that I wanted to eat that I couldn't eat for the last 6 months.
Yeah. And you're starving.
Yeah, and so it was bad. I remember coming, we were on our way back. It was Seven Feathers, so it was down in Eugene. And I remember my wife saying, "So what do you want to eat?" And I was like, "I really just want a burger." So we stopped by like Carl's Jr. I got a burger and fries and a milkshake, and she's driving home. It's like midnight. We're coming back to Salem. And I just remember I'm like, "Oh, pull off here. I want this too." And I don't even remember what it was, but we stopped. Then we got back in the morning, and it was just pancakes and this and that, and
Yeah.
it just blew up. Ankles were swollen. It was
Mhm.
it was terrible. But
Your
the
body's not ready for all of that.
yeah, not at all. And that's what people don't realize. And to bring it back to your main point of body image issues, I remember it really messed with me, because I was like, man, I just spent 6 months getting into what I thought was the best shape of my life. And then here I did, here in 3 days, I completely blew it.
Yeah.
And it took a while for my body to kind of normalize after the water dissipated,
Hmm.
but there's still that image. I think when everything was said and done, a few weeks later, I was up probably 10 or 12 pounds, and I looked fine. But to me, I was like, "Oh
You
man,
felt like you were fat.
I'm getting fat." Yeah, I don't see the striations in my obliques. My quads aren't as tight. And it wasn't until probably the second or third show, we had a plan post show. I
Hmm.
definitely didn't rebound as hard. I did it the right way, but still mentally, I had to tell myself, like, I don't need to look like this.
Yeah.
And I try to tell people that all the time that want to compete for the sole purpose to just get cut. And I'm like, if that's why you're competing, you're going to be in a world of hurt mentally when this is all said and done, because you're going to do all this to get beyond a point of leanness that is considered normal. And then everything beyond that, you're just going to feel as fat, and you're going to fight that battle for a long time. So I think a lot of people fail to realize that. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because even as an IFBB pro, you know, it's something that people struggle with.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. And I apologize for going off on the tangent.
No, I mean, like you said, it's definitely an important topic that I feel like it's coming to the surface more so now, but like I had no clue that was ever going to be an issue when I started it. I thought like, I'm just going to look awesome and then I'm going to be fine.
Yep.
But I actually didn't start dealing with that until like the better and better I got at it, the worse and worse my like disordered eating and body image stuff got. Cause then I just expected so much more from myself. Right. So now if anybody, especially women, tell me that they're interested in it, kind of like what you said, like if you just want to lose weight and look good, like just do that. Like just change your lifestyle and find a way to achieve your goals another way, instead of trying to step on stage and then you're actually being judged on the way you look.
Yeah. And that's mentally tough too, because you're standing up there thinking, you know, I look better than this guy, or, you know, whatever. And then to be told it's all based on judgment. So to be told, hey, that guy looks better than you, even though it's close, it's a mental thing. So, but let's talk powerlifting. So you got into powerlifting. What started that? What made you say, I'm a bodybuilder, I'm going to switch gears and just go pick up a ton of weight?
Well, I've always really enjoyed training. I was always pretty strong and I'm very competitive. So I generally trained with guys, whether it be coworkers when I used to work at gyms, or my boyfriend at the time. And I would compete with them, even though like, obviously I'm not going to be as strong as them. Well, some of them I was, but, and then when I met my husband, he was a powerlifter and had been doing it for a while. And our actually first date was, I went to the gym with him and benched with him. And most girls don't really bench, and then he was training with kilos. So I didn't know what was on the bar. And I was like, whatever, I'll just do whatever you put on the bar. And turns out like my first day, like actually benching, I think I benched like 154 for a couple of reps.
Wow. That was at what weight were you at then?
Roughly? I was probably in the 130s.
Okay.
Yeah, probably close to 140, because I had just rebounded after a show after I got my pro card. But then he was like, maybe you should try powerlifting. So when we moved out here, we had trained at Kabuki with Chris Steffen. And so I just kind of got in it and was like, I'll give it a shot, and just focused on getting stronger, which definitely helped me not think about the fact that I wasn't super lean.
Right.
And it was just a lot of fun. It's just different. Right. I'm definitely different than most powerlifters because I did a lot more volume. I just had, I was able to handle more because I was so used to all the reps when I trained for bodybuilding.
Right.
So even when I was getting really close to a meet, I still trained kind of like a bodybuilder, but I just started off with like squat, bench, or deadlift.
Sure.
Then kind of the same thing. I got really good at that and wanted to keep going.
So food-wise, what are the biggest differences? Obviously, you're eating for goals in both scenarios, bodybuilding and powerlifting. Bodybuilding, obviously, in general, we're eating either just enough to maintain or below to cut, and enough of a surplus that we're still staying lean, but we're utilizing everything we're eating. How does that compare to like your diet with powerlifting?
So me being a smaller girl, because I'm just about 5 feet tall, my calories got really low when I would diet. I'm pretty sure my last pro show, I was eating like 600-700 calories a day.
Wow.
Fortunately, I'm mentally strong enough to deal with it. And I'm busy enough to where I'm not so focused on being hungry. But the kinds of food is relatively the same. Just because that's the lifestyle that I've created for myself. So it doesn't really matter if I'm getting ready for a bodybuilding show or powerlifting. It was just the amount, like the goal with powerlifting was to train well and perform well. It wasn't to lose weight, just feel good and perform good. So it helped my relationship with food. So it was mainly the difference was the amount, and then not being afraid to eat carbs. Like that's going to help me perform better. And then obviously like I would do powerlifting in my bodybuilding off season. So if I wanted to have some cookies, then I could, and it wasn't really that big of a deal. It wasn't going to mess up my whole prep.
Right.
I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, no, that was perfect. So so that was food. Training style, I know you said you kept it very similar. What is your preferred training style when it comes to bodybuilding and powerlifting? It sounds like you're more of a high volume, and so I guess just kind of explain your training style and then how that carried over, transitioned between powerlifting and bodybuilding.
So before I met Tony, and he like really helped me learn to train optimally and like program properly to be my best, and then also finding exercises that work. Because when I just did bodybuilding, I would just do exercises that I thought were fun, and kind of went until I couldn't go anymore, right. Which is probably why I was able to handle so much when I started powerlifting. So I did do a lot of reps, but I also liked to lift heavy. So there were some movements that I would lower the reps, but it still was way more than just one, like what powerlifters do. And then once I got into powerlifting, there was just more barbell movements. So obviously I did barbell bench press and squat and deadlift, where before I wouldn't do too much. I'm sorry about the light.
Oh, that's okay.
I can't keep it on. It keeps turning off on me. But so the closer I would get to a powerlifting meet, then the volume would go down and the load would go up. And then when I'm getting ready for a bodybuilding show, I don't need to be as strong as I possibly can. But after I got into powerlifting, I did maintain very similar programming when I started going back into bodybuilding, and just kind of like combined the two, because I got so strong and built such good muscle in powerlifting that in order to keep that, I wanted to maintain that same training. That way, as I'm dieting, because you're not really going to be able to gain muscle mass while you're in a calorie deficit. So your goal is to maintain as much as you can. So Tony and I just figured that if I just trained the way I did when I built the muscle, then that will help me maintain it. So the goal was to be able to stay as strong as I possibly could.
Right.
Going into bodybuilding as well. Obviously, when you get really close and you're really lean, you have to kind of bring it back a little bit, because you don't want to get hurt right before a show. So you have no fluff to protect you. But so now it's relatively the same. It really just, like, the load obviously will be different, but I still will have days where I have a lot of reps, or certain exercises where I have reps, but then also certain exercises that I have just like more load and less reps. So that makes it a little bit challenging to like be able to tell people.
Right.
But yeah. So, I don't know how to explain it better.
So did you find coming back to bodybuilding as you cut, so did you find after you did powerlifting, then came back to bodybuilding and did a cut, that you were able to maintain a lot more strength than you were previously?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I know, I also it was a mental thing too, because then I understood why I was still training hard. Because I used to think that lighter weight and more reps was the way to go. So it was my out, like, you're tired and you're hungry, so you're not really like, you don't have the energy to push really hard sometimes. So I was like, no, that's normal. That's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to be doing things light right now. I'm getting ready for my bodybuilding show. So then when I realized, like, no, that's not really the case to bring my best. Like, you got to still train hard.
Yeah.
And so I just switched my mindset. And like now when I think back on what I've done, like for my pro shows, I don't know how I did it. Like, I'm what the heck? Because I think for my first and second pro shows, I was also getting ready for a powerlifting meet. I was going to do a show 1 month, a show the next month, and then a powerlifting meet the next month.
Crazy.
So I was dieting for my shows, but I was training for the meet.
Right.
And I was still really strong. I think I was 1 week out, and I think I was squatting 200 pounds for reps, benching 160, 165 for reps, and pulling 315 and at 100 pounds.
Yeah.
Eating like 600 calories. So it is quite amazing what you're capable of if you really like believe in yourself. Again, being really smart with my recovery and my sleep. That way I didn't get hurt. And obviously if a day felt bad because I was so lean, then I use back a little bit. But it helped me a lot to just be better and perform well.
Nice. So on this particular podcast, I like to talk a lot about business, how it interacts with fitness. We have another bodybuilder or another podcast that's bodybuilding specific, but I think that with what we just talked about, it's really important because it leads into this next topic, which is the fact that you're running multiple businesses on top of doing all of this. And for those of you that don't understand the amount of commitment and time that it takes to prep for a bodybuilding show or a powerlifting meet, it is very, very time intensive. Your entire day is built around making sure that you're eating your meals on time, you're getting to the gym when needed. Obviously, for those that have been doing it for a while, you understand the importance of, I hate to use the word balance because there's really not, it's one of those things where you're either all in or you're not, but you understand how to make it work. So let's talk about how to make it work. And tell me a little bit about the businesses that you guys currently have going before we get into the baking specifically, but tell me about that.
Okay. So we have our online coaching. So we do training and nutrition for our clients. So that one's, depending on how many clients we have, that one's a little bit easier to manage just because you could do it wherever you're at.
Right. And what's the name of that?
Team Phoenix Performance.
All right. And I'll make sure that I grab that information and put it in the show notes for anybody that wants to check that out.
Thank you for that. And then we have our gym, Strength Union, in Southeast Portland. And so that one, our gym's been open for 2.5 years. And so it's, people think it's a powerlifting gym. We like to say it's a strength gym. That way, like anybody can come, anybody and everyone can benefit from getting a little bit stronger. But it's a warehouse gym or like a glorified garage gym. Mm-hmm. You can still bodybuild out of it though.
That was I used to work out at the coast and there was a gym out there in South Beach that was the same way. They did a ton of powerlifting. The owner also worked at one of the hotels that they have a lot of the big meets out in Newport in. Rick Rayburn, shout out. He's probably not listening because I swear I only have like 5 followers, but I just remember that gym was awesome because it was the same thing. It was just a strength gym. It was where you went when you just wanted to go get stuff done.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So we have that. It's 2,200 square feet. So it's, okay, like I said, it's like a glorified garage gym, yeah. But Tony did a great job with the layout of our equipment. So we have a ton of stuff in there. So that's the other business. And then we just recently started a supplement line. Well, not too recently. It's probably coming up on a year. We now have 6 supplements.
Ooh,
we actually just posted today that we have pre-orders for our 3 new supplements that came out. And I mean, I could go over all of them, but it might be easier just to link because we have a lot of different stuff than like most places.
And what's the name of it?
Subject Zero Sups.
Subject Zero Sups. I'll make sure I put that in the show notes too. And just real briefly, what are some of the new products you have coming out? And then what's one of the main staples that you guys really promote?
So our main thing is health. So yes, we work with athletes, but like one of our new products is a pre-workout, and there's no stim in it, no caffeine, because there's so many people that train at night and then they take all this pre-workout and caffeine and then they can't sleep, or they don't sleep well, which then gets in the way of your recovery. So we have our stim-free pre-workout that is coming out. And then we also have a intro workout, so a carb drink, and then a hydration formula.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of non-stim or low stim pre-workouts for that exact reason. I'll usually go to the gym about 6:37 after my boys get ready to go to bed. And then from there, I mean, even if I'm tired, I try to stay away from the stims because you're going to get enough adrenaline and endorphin rush just from lifting, and it's already hard enough to wind down. And people don't understand, you guys, you burn fat and you increase muscle mass while you rest. So if you're not doing those things well, don't wonder why you're not losing weight or gaining size. So that's awesome. I'll make sure that I get that info down in the show notes too.
Yeah.
And then my favorite of all, actually, I love everything you just said, and I really want to swing by and check the gym out one of these weekends. But let's talk about baking and how you got started.
So I got started with baking because we had, gosh dang it.
Quick, I just want to, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
Oh, you're fine.
This is the Keeks Treats specific page, so make sure you guys check this out. Again, I'll put the info in the show notes. Instagram, keeks.treats. But I'll show some of these off for the people that are watching. For those that are listening, yeah, sorry. You're missing out.
They'll just have to go look on their own.
Yeah. So Keeks Treats and baking, how did you get started with that?
So I started baking because Tony and I would have one cheat meal a week, and homemade things are just so much better than store-bought stuff. And so I'd bake whatever we were craving for that cheat meal, and then I would bring the rest to coworkers when I didn't work for myself. And everyone was like, man, these are really good. And so I just kept bringing them to them. And then eventually they started dropping little dollars in my bucket. So they're like, we need to pay you for these. These are really good. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to turn away some money. Sure, you can pay me. And then when we opened up our gym, I was baking. And so I would bring in leftover treats to the gym. And then when I started dieting, I didn't eat any of them. So I would bring them to the gym and have my members try them for me. And oh, let me see you open it. Let me see what it looks like inside. And does it taste okay? And then they were like, man, these are really good. You should sell these. So that was kind of where it started. And I was like, really? You think? And Tony was like, yeah, you should give it a shot. So I started the Keeks Treats Instagram, and all right, let's see what we can do. So it's still brand new, but it's profitable and growing, so I can't complain.
That's awesome. And I gotta say, so for everybody out there, again, I had my first go around with Keeks Treats 2 weeks ago. I'm almost out. I have 2 brownies left. I've been portioning, but we have some more on the way. I have a video that I'll be putting out this next weekend that will be talking specifically about I don't really call them cheat days. They're more refeeds. The coach I work with, his name's Skip Hill. He specifically calls the way he does it skip loading, where it's a time frame based refeed. So as the body gets better at processing the amount of food that we're pushing, the window opens. So I started with like 1 meal or 2 meals 3 hours apart. We're now at 4 meals within 8 hours. Usually don't track, but I did this last weekend and I think I pushed almost 6,500 calories. Whereas my normal Monday through Saturday is like 2,200. So we're pushing the food, but I'm going to go over that. So I'm excited. We got some of her treats on the way that I'll be able to sample and show you guys as well. And again, I did a review of the animal cracker cookies that she made, frosted animal cracker cookies that were amazing. So definitely, if you get a chance, check those out. How do you manage your time between everything you and your husband are doing and then still finding time to stay fit, not even competing, but just making your own time at the gym?
So that has been a challenge, at least lately. The more I get into Keeks Treats, because obviously the other ones are kind of within the gym and within the health and fitness industry. So when I go to work at my gym, I just train. And so it was just that part, like everything was a little bit easier until I added in Keeks, and it's so time consuming to bake. So I mean, it's a work in progress for sure, but in May, so it was Mother's Day and it had been a few months of quarantine, I got so busy with Keeks because people were sick of being at home and then people were ordering for their moms. And I wasn't able to go to the gym. It was like so on the back burner that I was just working and baking. And I realized that, like, yes, I love baking, and yes, I'm not like getting ready for any kind of competition, but I have to do this for myself. I've always made it a priority before this. That needs to still be the case. Whether that be I go to the gym before I even start baking. So for a while I was waking up at 4 a.m. every morning. Wasn't quite good for my recovery after doing it for like 3 years. So I don't always wake up at 4 in the morning anymore. But like if I needed to, if I knew I had a big day with baking, then perhaps I'd go to the gym at 4 in the morning and then start.
Yeah, and I love that you say that because I'm the same way. If I had in the past, it was, well, I'll just go to the gym when I go to the gym. Well, sometimes that doesn't happen. Just like anything else, if you're not prepared, then you're gonna fail. And there's days where I'll wake up at 3 a.m. and I'll run upstairs and I'll eat and I'll go back to bed until 4. Then I get up and go to the gym. And people are like, oh, you're crazy. Why do you do that? Well, because it's important to me and I make it a priority. I could easily just sleep in and not go to the gym and, say, oh, well, I could have, or it's too hard. But I always tell people, when you tell somebody you don't have time for something, replace I don't have time with it's not important. And if you're okay saying that, then okay. But for me, I'm not okay saying the gym is not important. Therefore, I would never say I don't have the time. You'll find the time. The other question I get asked all the time is, how do you find time for the gym, or how do you make time for the gym? And I'll ask people, what are your top favorite TV shows? And almost never fails. They'll boom, 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 rattle them off. And then they'll either ask me why I asked them that, or they'll ask me what mine are. And I'll be like, I couldn't even tell you. I use that time to go to the gym. And it doesn't make me any better than you. That's just my priority. My priority is the gym over watching TV. My wife and I might watch a show or a half a show. We actually watch a lot of YouTube because it's 12 to 15 minutes for most videos. But that's it. We fill our time with other things. And if somebody's a TV watcher, book reader, whatever, that's fine. But if it's important to you, you'll find a way. So I'm glad you brought that up. Feed me, fight me. That's actually, speaking of, in the hat, That's actually how I came across you. I think I was just floating through some hashtags or something, and I remember seeing, I don't remember exactly what post it was. It was one of your powerlifting posts, and I was like, damn, that girl's strong. And I was watching a couple videos and then just kind of flipping through, and I saw something with you baking. Then it carried me over to Keeks Treats, and I was like, oh, okay. And so that's kind of, I've known John and Brian kind of since the jump. The last job I was at, it's actually a really funny story. I was on this app. It was, I don't even remember, I think it's called Shaper, but it's literally Tinder for businesses.
Ah,
So
interesting.
yeah, so I did marketing and web design. I was working with a friend of mine as with a startup company. They're still doing great, and I do some work with them on the side from time to time. But you literally swipe left or swipe right, and I saw John, and I saw that he was with Feed Me Fight Me, and I'm like, oh, I have, and it was right as they were just kind of tipping the iceberg on Instagram. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. And I swiped right, and it was like, oh, John wants to meet with you too. So immediately I reached out. I was like, hey, would love to connect. We do web design. Looks like you're looking for a web developer. Within like 10 minutes, we set up a video call, chatted, and then got together, did some work, did a little bit of work for them. And then since then, just stayed in touch. They've moved on from our company because they've grown so much, so fast. But always love keeping in touch with those guys. I just saw John a couple weeks ago for his birthday, but how did you kind of come across them?
So I met Brian, well, Tony and I met Brian. I have a feeling Tony met them at least via social media before then, but we met Brian in person at my second powerlifting meet. And I won the meet. So I got like Feed Me Fight Me stuff, and Tony was talking to Brian in the back. They were kind of keeping each other company. And Brian's not as into powerlifting as much as John is.
Right.
And so John was very jealous that Brian was there, like chatting it up with Tony and like talking about all this stuff. And then I want to say maybe like the next year, Tony and I went on a vacation to Hawaii, which is where John was stationed. I think that's how you say it. And so we kind of like planned to meet up. So Brian also went on vacation to Hawaii, and we all like kind of spent a day together out there. And so we became friends that way. And then when they decided to bring everything to Washington, then we're like, hey, we're right here. Mm-hmm. So I've done plenty of photo shoots with them. And then we just try to keep in touch. It's definitely hard when you get really busy. Not that that's a good excuse, but
it's true. It is though. I mean, I agree. It's not, but it is hard. You get pulled in so many different directions. Mm-hmm. It's hard to bring those things back together, and I find that as well. So if you had to give a recommendation to somebody that was either running a business or looking to start a business, what would your advice be on the importance of staying in good physical shape while trying to run a business?
I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is just get it done first. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a reason why so many bodybuilder competitors do fasted cardio. No one wants to do it later in the day. Like, so if it's really important to you and you know that you're going to be really busy, like, get used to early morning workouts. I've been fortunate enough to where I haven't had to do that too often, but best believe I've made it happen if I needed to. Right. Because after a long day of work, you're like you said earlier, like, you don't know if you're going to be able to make it, like, unless you really have the discipline, but that's possibly setting yourself up for failure. So I think that would be kind of like the easiest route. Like, you'll get used to waking up early.
Yep.
It's kind of like when you first start training, it's really, really hard and you don't really like it that much. Kind of the same thing. Like you'll get better at training and you get stronger. You'll get better at waking up early. And then it's just kind of like your norm.
Yeah. And I found when I was helping run the startup company, if I didn't work out first thing in the morning, I had less energy throughout the day. I also noticed that by working out in the morning, it gave me time to set my day up. Even if all I was doing was cardio, a lot of times I would sit there and put together kind of what I needed to do for the day or people I needed to reach out to. So it just kind of gets things flowing. And then, of course, you know, people think, well, I'm going to have to wake up early, so I'm going to be tired throughout the day. Like you said, you'll get used to it. And then not only do you get used to it, it actually gives you better performance because now you have more energy throughout the day. Mentally, you are able to think better, think faster. So yeah, I love that answer in the sense of get it done and get it done early. All right. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I promised you a half hour. I could talk to you for way longer, but I will let you go.
We could do a part 2.
The last thing I will say is go ahead and plug your business. I know we did it a little bit, but tell us again, the personal training, where people can find you. I'll make sure I add it all in the show notes, but just so people have the names of your training, your supplements, and then of course, where they can find the delicious treats that you make.
So for training and nutrition coaching, it's Team Phoenix Performance. And then that's either me or my husband. So like generally females want females and guys want the guy. And then our gym is Strength Union in Southeast Portland. Just either shoot us a message or an email before coming by because you would need a key to get in. And then our supplements is Subject Zero Sups. We have 3 new products that you can pre-order, which is super exciting. And then Keeks Treats. So I do plenty of custom orders, but then you can also pick the Keeks faves. So.
All right. Yeah. And use code Devin39 and save yourself 10%.
Yes.
Shameless plug. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Like I said, I'll get all the show notes down there below and make sure that people have access to that. And I would love to have you on again with Neil on our other podcast where we talk a little bit more specifically just about bodybuilding. But best of luck moving forward. I know we'll still be in contact. You've been great. So thank you again. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.